Welcome to Dialogue, the Deerfield Podcast where I sit down with members of the Academy community, near and far, guest speakers, and friends of our school to discuss topics relevant here on Old Main Street, across the U.S., and around the globe. Thank you for joining us. Today's guest is author and educator Alison Wood Brooks, the O'Brien Associate Professor of Business Administration and Hellman Faculty Fellow at Harvard Business School. Talk, The Science of Conversation and the Art of Being Ourselves is her first book, and has led her to help organizations, leaders, and professional athletes, including the Boston Celtics, work on their communication skills. When Alison came to campus this fall, she delivered a great presentation for students at school meeting and then joined me for this conversation. Alison Wood Brooks, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Your presentation to the kids was fantastic and well received. So thank you. So the first thing I'm curious about is how you became curious about conversation. Like how did you get to this scholarly point in your life?
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's an answer that focuses on my sort of journey of scholarship, where I've always been interested in math and science and writing and people. And those things sort of came together. When I got my PhD, I was studying emotions, mostly anxiety, actually, and how most of us feel anxious a lot of the time during the day. And it doesn't require medication or therapy per se, but what can we do to cope with those feelings? How is it serving us well and not well? And so it's not actually that surprising that a few years after that, I made the leap into conversation, the place where our anxiety is maybe on full display and affects us in so many ways. I think the timing of that, my interest in studying conversation as a scholar, is also not a coincidence that it's coincided with this sort of tech trend in the world. Human language has been studied for hundreds of years, but we've really only been able to study real transcripts from real dialogue between people for about 10, because we needed technology to help us record real conversations and analyze them using natural language processing and machine learning. And that coincided with how technology is helping or hurting people from connecting differently than they used to even 20 years ago. So all of that has sort of been coinciding. Can I say a more personal answer to your question, though? I'm an identical twin. And I have an identical twin sister named Sarah. I grew up with a sort of built-in conversation partner my whole childhood. And I think in a really profound way, I've sort of been trying to figure out how to help other people have that tight-knit relationship and the level of shared understanding that you could have with an identical twin. How can I help other people achieve that in their relationships and conversations? Yeah.
Did you have a mentor or a teacher who helped shape your journey as a teacher and scholar?
I had so many incredible teachers that I almost want to cry thinking about them. I had an incredible English teacher in middle school, Brian Anderson, hello, who, and so many wonderful teachers along the way who help you develop as a thinker and as a writer. And then on the flip side of that, I always loved math and science, and I had incredible math teachers, incredible science teachers. My high school math teacher, his name was George Reuter, was just a genius. He was so good at teaching us math, but also challenging us and getting us to think creatively about how to use math. One example, I remember this assignment where we were learning about how to calculate the surface area of different shapes. And I wanted to do a project about the ellipse. And he said, go find an ellipse in the world and draw it for me and calculate the volume or whatever. And I took a glass and I was like, oh, it's an ellipse on the surface of the glass. And so I just remember drawing this glass of orange juice and calculating all of these things about the geometry of it. And I think teachers like that who can pull math and show you where it is in the world and how to use it in ways that are creative and fun, so shaped my passion for it and my love for it. And that carried on through college and beyond. I had the great luck. I got to take, I was an undergrad at Princeton, and I got to take a class called The Psychology of Judgment and Decision Making with, it was the last time it was taught by Nobel Prize winner Danny Kahneman.
Oh, wow.
And so
Wow.
it was, I fell in love with behavioral science. It was the first time I had gotten to sort of interact or see a scholar of that level doing such fascinating research.
Yeah.
And I think these little touch points with real people and the fascinating things they're studying just send you on a trajectory that can be just, it led me to where I am. And I think it happens to everybody.
It's interesting that you mentioned both an English teacher and a math teacher, because you talk about the science of conversation. So it's kind of a humanistic undertaking to understand how people interact and talk with one another, but you're studying it like a scientist. So I wondered if you could say something more about how your work is scientific.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the history of how we teach quote unquote soft skills or interpersonal skills historically has been sort of largely anecdotal. People come up with frameworks or tell stories about things that worked for them. And because this new science of conversation has emerged over the last 10 years, that work and that teaching based on anecdotes and hunches can be legitimately helpful to people and has been so helpful to many people. But now we can do those same things. We can come up with frameworks and advice for how to talk to people that's actually based on large scale evidence, not just your personal hunches or what worked for some fancy CEO.
So like how many conversations have you analyzed?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. I have not counted, but it has to be in hundreds of thousands. And certainly there are big companies out there in the millions, right? That's what AI is doing. That's what this whole movement is based on, is people realize, oh, we can record people's choices, micro decisions, and pick up patterns. When is this going well for some people and not well for others? What choices led to the good outcomes? What choices led to the bad ones? Can we learn to do the good ones more often? And the resounding answer is yes. You can learn to do simple things like prepping topics that on average help you have a better conversation. And so this interplay between art or soft skills and science, to me, was so exciting. Now it's really based in some rigorous evidence and almost more like mathematical calculations to get the humanistic and subjective outcomes that we want, like love and connection. We can learn these really rigorous strategies to do it.
Interesting. So are you using AI to mine this massive hundreds of thousands of conversations database to study?
I am. So scientists are increasingly using AI to analyze larger swaths of data. That's very exciting. It remains to be seen how helpful it is for generating good ideas. Like deciding what to study, what to pursue. Do we study topic prep or do we study question asking? Can AI say to me, of all topics in the world, here's the most promising? I'm not sure it can do that yet, but it can. Once we go to the trouble of recording 300,000 conversations of people on first dates or in work meetings, it can help us analyze that so much more efficiently. I will tell you, I'm using AI in my teaching. Can I share with you how I'm using it?
I'd love to learn.
So I teach this course at Harvard called Talk. The whole goal is to help students hone their conversational skills. It's different than most Harvard Business School classes. It's not case-based. They do exercises in class where they practice talking to each other, experimenting in this safe environment with strategies that they might not feel comfortable trying in their lives, seeing if it works for them, and then you keep going. I have always felt that what was missing is being able to give them very concrete feedback at large scale. I have 200 students at once. How could I possibly listen to all their conversations and say, oh, at this moment, you could have asked a follow-up question. Or at this moment, that was an opportunity for a joke. I can't do that as a human, but I can do it as an AI.
Yes.
So I, together with a company called Virtual Sapiens, we built an AI version of me. And the input data for it was my book that you read, the transcripts from so many podcasts that I've done, like this one, the syllabus from my course. So now this AI version of me knows almost everything that I know about
Yes.
conversation. The students log on and have office hours with her. And she starts by saying, John, what are you struggling with in your conversations these days? And you share something with the AI and you have a conversation about it. And at some point she says, John, would you like to role play that situation? And you say, yes. And then we role play. Maybe I'm your colleague. Maybe I'm a teacher. Maybe I'm a student. We role play it. And then I say, would you like to try it again? And you can try it again. You can do reps. And then we end. And at the end of the whole conversation, a dashboard pops up that gives you feedback on your body language, on your verbal choices, on the topics that you chose, the questions you asked, the jokes you told, and how well you were listening, all in the talk framework. And I was so skeptical about it, John. I was like, this is not going to be useful. I'm really skeptical and want to be very careful about data privacy and safety and all of these things. I don't want to replace real critical thinking and learning for my students, but I do want to get them feedback. And so I gave it a try, and it blew their hair back. These are the grumpiest, most skeptical students in the world. And they were like, holy cow, this is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a tech skeptic as well, as I think everyone knows, but I'm really curious about this. So it's essentially you capture the conversation.
Yes.
And then an avatar of you provides
just a photo and my voice,
a feedback, a kind of avatar.
But first, she has the conversation with this student, and all the way along, she's guided by the whole base of knowledge that is in this book, based on these 300, academic articles about conversation. So she both knows that in her knowledge and is doing it as a role model to the student. And as a sounding board for them, as whatever and it's user guided. So whatever that student's struggling with, she's going to have great advice about it. And it's very personalized.
So do you ever think that could be harnessed to provide the same kind of feedback for teachers?
Yes.
That is to say, if you were to record classes.
Yes.
There's two things
that I would like to do with teachers. One is you could give them feedback to help them become a better teacher. The other is you could mitigate some need for training, because you could build an AI teaching assistant. So for example, imagine I went to one of your teachers here and I said, tomorrow you're going to start teaching my course here. Instead of us spending months or a year training them in the content, or even reading my book, actually, I could just say, now you're going to have you're going to talk for an hour with this teaching assistant. And the teaching assistant knows everything in the book, and they know everything about lesson 1. They know all the different variations about how you could teach it. You're going to tell it information about your students and about your goals. And it's going to give you lots of ideas and walk you through exactly how to do it. So it's sort of like having me in the room with them.
Yeah.
But as they're prepping their teaching and while it unfolds.
Interesting.
And after to debrief about it.
And are you doing this now?
We're working on it.
Because I know HBS has a very codified kind of approach to the teaching and the use of case studies with the boards and I know that because I'm using them in my own class right now.
Exactly. So our case-based teaching is the Socratic method. It is amazing. It is why I think our style of education and pedagogy can't be replaced by AI, because what you glean from face-to-face conversation in a room full of other human beings is so thought-provoking. It would be very hard to simulate that with a room full of AI agents. But if we are thinking of using AI as a helpful tool, it's very burdensome to teach at HBS. It's very burdensome to facilitate a good case discussion. It would be super helpful to us as teachers to have a partner in crime while you're prepping your case discussion who's coaching you the whole way along a coach who's maybe watching the class and gives feedback,
Yeah.
a coach who watches and helps you grade the students' comments,
Yeah.
and then someone who helps you debrief and prep your next lesson. And that maintains tech-free life for the students, right? Like they're still getting all the benefits of face-to-face interaction and this case discussion. It's just in the background. How are we leveraging AI to help it all happen more effectively?
How can a school like Deerfield learn more about how you're studying teaching?
Great question. We should keep talking.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Because I share your skepticism and I think position that especially for adolescents and teenagers,
Yes.
they desperately need tech-free life. They need to learn how to think critically and write and read and be confused and work hard without help.
Yeah.
And also I have kids, I feel this way about my kids
Yes.
too. And also I want them to learn how these tools work, how they're built, how
Yes.
they might be leveraged. And I want to make their learning experience, their tech-free learning experience, as great as possible. And we would be foolish to not leverage AI to help us do that on the teaching, on the pedagogy side. And that's very much on my mind these days. I'm adapting my bookend course for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so I'm very much thinking about how, and I think it's quite important to insist on it being almost entirely tech-free from the student's perspective. But it's like, how can we design tools that are helpful to teachers, parents, your community, your school, while preserving the tech-free environment for the kids as their brains are developing?
Yeah. I know there were a couple chapters from Talk that you decided not to include.
Yeah, I love that. Yes.
And one of those was on. So just tell me, what were the two chapters you decided not to include?
There were three. Actually, I don't know if I've shared this. One that I decided not to include was about silence and all the communication that happens between the lines. I think that's a separate book. I mean, really, it's so, I love that topic. But I decided it was too big to be its own chapter. One was about friendship. And I don't know if I've even shared that anywhere before.
No, I haven't read about it.
I love the topic of friendship is so fascinating and so important. It felt like it wasn't quite the right fit in this book, but it continues to be on my mind. And then the third was about talking in the digital age.
Yes.
And I did not include that one. I wanted to so badly. I think some of the reviews of my book, most have been very positive, but a couple, if you have a bone to pick, it's often like, how did she write a whole book without talking about tech at all? And the answer is, of course, I'm aware of tech and I'm deeply informed about how conversation differs across different modalities. Face-to-face is the most rich and rewarding and the most important because we have verbal cues, our words. We have nonverbal cues, all the information coming in through our eyes. So it's not just you smiling and nodding, but it's also like what you're wearing and where we're sitting in this beautiful office. Like I'm taking in all that information while I'm talking to you and it matters. Also acoustic information. What does your voice sound like? What else are we hearing in our environment? All of that matters and we get all of that face-to-face, no matter what other modality you're talking on, whether it's Zoom, the phone, Snapchat, DMs, text, it's limited in some way.
It narrows
it
things.
narrows it in a way that makes those modes less rewarding. I have my students do an exercise in my class where they do like an audit of their communication life. You look back on 20 minutes of your life, anybody can do this, and you record every incoming and outgoing message, whether it's face-to-face or over text or on an email or Snapchat, phone call, whatever, for 20 minutes. And it's just for people who are manically skipping across modes of communication, it's very eye-opening how braided the topics and the people and all of these ideas are. One of the things that the students always reflect about when they look back at this audit of their communicative life is that only the face-to-face conversations feel real. That's when you feel like you can actually connect with people, is when you're sitting face-to-face. Even a Zoom call, which is pretty rich in information, it's stilted and you're not actually together with them in the same place. Research sort of shows how much more rich and rewarding face-to-face is. We're 30 times more likely to laugh in person than anywhere else. We're 34 times more persuasive. 34 times, not just 34%, 34 times more persuasive in person than over any other mode. That doesn't mean that those other modes of communication don't matter. It's just that they are different and they aren't as rewarding. And the reason I dropped this chapter from the book is because tech is changing so quickly. What could I possibly say today, written in Word, that will be even relevant by a month from now? GPT was invented in the last month of my book writing. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like it just changes, and it's going to continue changing that quickly.
I have like 3 different follow-up questions here. So the first is like, how do you manage technology in your own life as a professional, as a teacher, as a parent?
It's a fabulous question. I think it's like everyone, I'm wrestling with it constantly. It's not like I've found the solution and I'm sticking to it. I too am like battling, thinking about how do I help my kids learn to have a relationship with technology that is helpful to them, but doesn't just distract away and replace conversations with real people, or distract away from them learning to think critically and write and focus on their—
How old are your kids?
10, 8, and 6.
And do you place tech limits on there? I'm
so
just
much.
wondering about our parents.
Yes, so much. We're always my husband and I are constantly in contact with it. We just moved the kid computer in our house up to a place where it's much closer, so we're always nearby. That felt important. We just, with my 10-year-old, we just put on a 20-minute limit on overall each day, 20 minutes. For anything. For any screen. Literally any computer time at all, which sounds really sort of strict, but you can do a lot in 20 minutes. You can talk to friends, you can message friends, you can do a lot in 20 minutes. And I want them off. I want them talking to real people and thinking about real work. And to me, I think that feels like the right solution is really chunking. Having a very limited time when you are in front of a screen, and usually that screen should be fixed. It should either be a TV or a computer in your house, not a mobile. It sounds like you have like almost a workstation. Workstation. House. It's a desktop. Yeah. And so your kids don't have. No. Oh, they're too little. They're too little. No. I just read a statistic that 40% of 2-year-olds have iPads. I know. And I know a lot of people do, and they have real needs that have led them to that. But it's certainly not right for my family. And I really worry about what it's doing to kids. So chunking their time on any technology feels right, so that for the rest of the day they can be tech-free and living that life, and their brains can be developing. And even when they're on that technology for those 20 minutes, we have to think carefully about what they have access to, and really hopefully designing their workstation, or even if it's TV, if they're watching a movie or whatever, making sure that it's stuff that's good for them. That they're learning the things that are good and not terrible. And the thing that's hard about it is it just takes like constant monitoring and updating as a parent, as a teacher, learning what's available now and in what ways is that helpful for them and in what ways is it not. As a teacher, I think I've been lucky to be at a school like Harvard Business School that already privileges tech-free face-to-face interaction. And so it's almost— Do they have a hard rule? No tech in the classroom. No tech in the classroom. No tech in the classroom. No screens. No screens. So they have to take notes by hand. Correct. Yep. Correct. And it's always felt remarkable to me, but during this sort of screen-based revolution, it becomes even more magical and meaningful to have those protected tech-free pockets, no screens. It's just kind of remarkable. My class is a little bit different because it's more experiential. And I've always been grappling with how do I leverage the tools that can help people record and analyze and give feedback on their conversations. So I sort of break the rules a little bit in my class, and I ask my students to record their conversations and then go home and listen back and transcribe. But it's very clear that that's just for 2 minutes during class, and then it goes back away, back in your backpack. And these are adults, right? They're 28 years old on average. I would not do that with kids.
Because it seems like we're moving into, I mean, I wonder if even 10 years from now, the cell phone will be a thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to have wearable devices and even potentially implants and glasses and all kinds of alternative ways.
We should always have the ability, no matter what, well, we'll see, but to chunk your access to it.
Yes.
Right? In the way you spend your time. You can have chunks of time where it's on and chunks of time where it's off.
Yes.
I find comfort in knowing that or thinking about that.
You publish a piece in Jonathan Haidt's Substack on tech, and you talked about the two dangers of it. One, I think, was displacement, and the second was
memory.
Distraction.
Disruption is one, and the other is replacement.
Yes.
So disruption is if there is a screen, whether it's a computer or your phone or an iPad, whatever, that tech disrupts your ability to connect with other people who are sitting right in front of you. We all know that. You know, so it ranges from spouses sitting on the couch, both on their phones, not talking to each other. But even having your phone sitting on the table next to you or on the desk next to you during a class means you're more likely to be thinking about what's happening in that digital world and you ruminating about it. Or have my friends responded to the text chain yet? How many likes do I have on my last Instagram post? Whatever. Having it right there is a salient reminder that that portal to a completely different world is right there, and it's impossible not to think about it. And that's just, even that is disruptive to your ability to direct your attention focus in the moment. And so Angela Duckworth, who is a psychologist at Penn, has this amazing study where they find that the distance you put the tech away, physically the distance, how far it is away from you, is linearly related to kids' test scores. The further away it is, the higher their test scores, because it takes away the disruption. It takes away the distraction, so they can actually learn stuff and that and focus on the people around them and then the content that's happening. So that's disruption. Replacement is really the thing that is so obviously bad. I mean, they're both bad, but if you are spending so much of your day scrolling and on your phone, that is time that you are not connecting with other people. And I don't mean like highbrow, deep intellectual discussions with whoever. It's literally like you're not seeing casual bump-ins between friends in the bathroom, or you're not seeing a father and son whiz past you on their bicycles and realize that they're like talking lovingly to each other. It's these like little moments in the social world that are so important to notice and observe. Seeing those moments helps us become better conversationalists. And if you're not observing them and you're not having them, your conversational muscle is going to atrophy or never develop.
Not to mention the loss of time in nature. Time reading, time sleeping, like all of the things that really matter to young people.
That's right.
So given what you've learned about the importance of face-to-face interaction, like what advice do you have for schools? Like how would you design your ideal high school for 9 through 12?
It's a fabulous question. I'm of two minds about it. I have admiration for what you're doing here, which I glean is mostly like no access. Let's create a world where kids...
Not as much as the head of school would like.
Exactly.
But yeah, we limit it from 8 to 6, and then we ask the 9th and the 10th graders to lock their phones at night so they can go to bed.
That's right. And I think, that wouldn't be the right system for adults or older people. Agree. It is possibly the right system for kids this age while their brains are developing and they're learning who they are and how to be in the world, how to talk to people, how to have an imagination, how to watch, rain droplets run down the window when it's raining rather than thumbs on the phone. So I think that is one world, and I can very easily imagine the arguments for why that might be optimal. The other model that has been thought-provoking to me recently is this like alpha school type of model.
Yes. I've been reading about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
Joe Lamont. I reached out to him. Their model is, what if we try and leverage AI to do personalized learning in a much more compressed portion of the day? Let's say 2 hours.
Tutoring.
Yes, tutoring. It's essentially one-on-one tutoring, which I'm now seeing with this
Yeah.
office hours AI in my students,
Yeah.
how powerful it is. When it's perfectly personalized and you're getting tons of feedback and reps, you do learn faster.
Yes.
So the idea of compressing it into a certain chunk of the day actually makes sense, and I think it could be possible. And then, but very importantly, for most of the programming for the rest of the day, you're completely off of technology and you're focusing on life skills. I don't really know yet how Alpha School is thinking what are life skills, but I can imagine it's largely conversation-based skill building. It's public speaking, it's leading a team, it's cooking, it's whatever.
Seminar discussions.
Building things, whatever.
Eating together.
All of it. And that I can imagine an argument for that model of pedagogy also being optimal. I don't know yet. I don't think anyone knows yet.
I don't think we know either.
But I admire both models, and I truly admire any school that is thinking carefully about how to preserve tech-free, screen-free time for their students for their brains to develop.
Yeah. Tell me about the course that you're designing for middle and high school students.
Yeah. So it's based on my talk course from Harvard, which I started developing about 8 years ago. I was brought to Harvard to teach negotiations, and I realized after about teaching it for 4 or 5 years, I was like, I just think we're missing a big piece of the social world.
Were you doing the case study method with negotiations?
Negotiation is also exercises, experiential, but it's different. You take on a role that isn't really you. You have to pretend to be the owner of a factory and then negotiate contracts, that kind of thing. Those experiences are very valuable, but it is a two-stage perspective-taking task. It's sort of like I have to think about what I would be feeling and thinking if I were actually the owner of a factory. And then I'm going to try and take the perspective of my counterpart, who is, buyer of whatever. That's hard. So that to me felt a little contrived. It's useful, but a little contrived. And persuasion is not the only goal of life. And I felt like we needed to widen the aperture of what it means to have a rewarding life. And so I designed this course called Talk, where we do experience exercises like the negotiation course, but it's always just you. You're acting as you, and you're practicing this muscle, and you're going to try conversational strategies in a safe place.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do the two-stage perspective-taking thing. And we're going to think more broadly about what are your goals. Sometimes it's persuasion, but it's often like we just want to have a good time together, or I need to protect your privacy, or I want to learn about you. And that's what the course at Harvard sort of hit a nerve. It's been very popular, always oversubscribed. It's almost like I've done the most stringent pilot testing you could ever do with these extremely grumpy, brilliant students many of whom are already great conversationalists. And they come in and they have all of these ideas. I get to see how they react to the exercises. And at some point I thought, I just need to get to humans sooner in their lives.
Yes.
These students, many of their beliefs and their goals are already calcified by the time they're 28 and they get to the business school. They are still very much developing, by the way, but I bet
the dating stuff that you talked about at
it's so relevant for them,
appealing to them,
and all of this stuff. I mean, all of it. So many of them are starting companies, so they're entrepreneurs, and so the idea of what does it mean to pitch to an investor? You're not just like there to persuade them. You need to ask them questions to find out what are they actually curious, like what are they excited about, what do they need. What are they looking forward to? Could you have a real relationship before you then are like, I think I might have the thing you're looking for, right? Like it's just a broader perspective on all the conversational things that we need to do. So I've spent 8 years at Harvard developing this course. It's been hard and wonderful and rewarding, and it led to this book. And now I feel like I've got it. I've got the rubric. I've wrapped pretty sensical framework around this vast landscape of the social world in a way that feels also very value aligned with most schools. Like we are trying to train people who are articulate and brilliant, but also fun and kind. the kind of people that other people want to be around and work with and be married to. And so I feel like the talk framework kind of gets that. And so now I feel like we're at a point, and for the last 6 months, we've been working diligently to adapt the course for middle schoolers and high schoolers. Right now, it is a series of 20 lessons, all of which have been like sort of pilot tested like crazy at Harvard. Very flexible. You could imagine teaching each lesson in 15 minutes and in some interstitial time during the day, or up to an hour and a half where you really do an exercise and then really debrief it and do follow-up things. And it's all experiential. It's all tech-free from the student's perspective. And it's like, get the students to turn to each other and try things. Talk to each other. Try asking follow-up questions. Try listening with your eyes closed. Try validating each other relentlessly. Try switching topics like mad. What if all of a sudden we start talking about the Kardashians? Go. Like all of these things that they need to try so that when they get to a date in their real life, they don't stall out and have nothing to say. They've now practiced. Here's what it feels like to move too quickly through topics. Here's what it feels like to move too slowly. And all of it, thank goodness, is supported by this emerging science of conversation. So they're having these experiences and then they learn, like, why did that work? Oh, because it helped you offload so much of the work that you're usually doing during conversation. It's cognitive offloading. Let's talk about the mechanics of what just happened and why that might be helpful to you.
Yeah. Switching topics.
Love it.
So one very wonky title of an article that you published is called Relational Diversity in Social Portfolios Predicts
Oh my God,
Well-Being.
forgive me. The journal made us do that title.
That's great.
It's very academic.
Title.
Yes, it is.
But I was struck by that. Relational diversity in social portfolios.
Yes.
Predicts well-being. Just explain that.
Here's a better title that people might be more familiar with. You might have heard of this work by Mark Granovetter called The Strength of Weak Ties, meaning it's really meaningful. Of course, it's important to have close friendships and to have a good marriage and to have really close working relationships with your colleagues. But it's also really important to have bump-ins with a cashier at a grocery store and make them smile. It's important to have acquaintances that you don't really know, but you remember things about them and can ask them a meaningful question or admire them. Those weak ties that you're not necessarily in a close relationship with are also important and rewarding to us in terms of learning, in terms of life development, in terms of feeling connected to the world. And so this paper that we wrote, that was Mark Granovetter's idea many, many years ago, but we were the first ones to say, hey, we can actually study this with data now. We can capture who in the world is walking through their day and actually not just talking to more people, but a more diverse portfolio of relationship types.
Yes.
You could imagine one scenario where you go through your day and you only talk to your spouse. You talk to them, let's say you talk to them 11 times, but only them.
It's like COVIDville.
COVIDville. That's why COVID was so there's so many reasons. One of the reasons it was so hard. Another scenario where you wake up and have a conversation with your spouse, but then you also talk to each of your kids, and then you talk to their bus driver, then someone in the grocery store, and then the trainer at your gym, and then you walk in and you talk to your students. That day, your social portfolio is so much more diverse. And it's not about demographic diversity, black, white, man, woman, age. It's about how close are you to them and what is the nature of your relationship. And it turns out that both people who have a more diverse range of relationship types that they have conversations with are much happier.
Interesting.
Consistently and almost causally. Like if I say to you, let's make your day, I look at your planner and I say, let's make this more diverse, walk out onto campus and have some random bump-ins with people, that will make your day better.
The reason it caught my eye is that I think boarding schools, and particularly Deerfield, like structure frequency of weak ties.
Yes, you do. I was admiring that, hearing about your family meal, your family dinners. And other many things.
Yeah, but the sit-down meals, so if you're a ninth grader here and you arrive, in September of your freshman year, by the time you graduate, you will have sat down and had regular meals with probably 400 or 450 different students at the school.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And some of them will be awkward, and some of them will be terrible, and some of them will be okay. Some of them will be deeply thought-provoking.
Yes.
Some of them will be hilarious or weird or whatever. But the exposure that you're getting to different people and different ways that can go is so valuable. It's such a gift that you're giving to them.
I mean, we've always known that thick relationships and strong mentoring is really powerful for kids.
Of course.
But it's also that extensiveness of interacting with a community as frequently as the kids are.
And especially in a diversity of situations where sometimes there's going to be a sort of power differences. There's going to be a teacher sitting at the table with a group of students, and sometimes not. You're in a flat structure where it's all students. It's just students in your grade. And then what happens? Who's going to lead this? Who's going to ask the first question? Who's going to make the jokes? Why? What are the goals? Can we do it? And all of that is valuable.
What's your next project?
I'm really excited about adapting the course for teens and adolescents.
Yes.
That's a huge chunk of my focus and
we would love to
excitement.
learn more about that.
Fabulous. Research-wise, I am working on a project right now. Let me pick one that I'm working on. I'm working on a project right now about callbacks. Callbacks are these fleeting moments in conversation where you call back to something you talked about earlier, either in that conversation or even earlier in your relationship. And it feels very brief and fleeting and like not a huge deal, but it is a huge deal.
Yes.
Because it shows that you were listening to your partner. It shows that you care, that you were thinking about it in the time between the initial instance and this callback. It also almost all the time is pretty funny. Like if you have the cleverness to call back to something that was mentioned earlier, that's going to tickle the fancy of your conversation partner because they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Good job. Oh, yeah, nice callback. So we're studying callbacks. And
you're going to study that.
Oh, yeah. And it's just so fun. Anything that you can do to use your words to show someone that you heard them, whether it's a callback or a follow-up question or paraphrasing. If you're in a group, let's say you're sitting at one of these student dinners, and let's say 3 other people make comments. If you're able to chime in and say, I think what we're hearing from Johnny, Susie, and Andy is that there is some tension around how to bring AI into the classroom. And I think our teachers are grappling with that too. All of a sudden, you've shown them that you were listening to each of them, that it's okay that if there was disagreement among them, and that you have the ability to sort of summarize in a way that's actually useful to the group and to the conversation going forward. So all of these things that show that you've listened with your words are magic. Just magic.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you have any book recommendations, either for students, parents, or other educators.
Yes,
you can choose any of those categories.
Fabulous. My work bestie at Harvard, her name is Leslie John. She studies disclosure. She has a book coming out in the spring called Revealing: The Underrated Power of Oversharing. And all of it is grappling with this: how much of myself do I share with other people in conversation? What are the pros and cons of that? I think one of the main takeaways that I've sort of taken from her work is disclose less online and disclose way more in person.
Interesting.
That's where connection comes from in conversation, is vulnerability and not being perfect and sharing it with other people. Don't go on Snapchat and do it. Do it with real people in front of you. So that's one book that I would recommend. Steven Pinker just had a great book come out about common knowledge that I think is highly related to my book on talk.
Oh, great.
Because talking is the way that information that's private in our minds becomes common knowledge between people. Once you say it out loud, once the little boy shouts, I think the emperor is naked, then all of a sudden that's in our common knowledge, and no one can continue to pretend like this weird thing isn't happening. So I think his book is very thought provoking.
Great. Alison Wood Brooks, thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
That was so
Such
much
a
fun.
pleasure. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.